soon as I get my other board members back.
Exactly.
You're ready to speak? Okay.
It's important not to hear.
If there's only 3 people, what's the person?
All right.
Trouble.
I am now calling the regular meeting of the Midcoast Community Council for February 11th, 2015 to order. Will the council members please introduce themselves?
Dan Haggerty.
Chris Johnson.
Dave Olson.
Laura Stein.
Lisa Ketchum.
And apparently we don't have council members, Aaron Danzer and Joel Deneau tonight. And Nicholas, go ahead and kick off.
So actually, I only have a couple things tonight. Good to see everyone. Number one is regarding the congestion management project, which are the left turn lanes, raised medians, and pedestrian crossings throughout the Midcoast. So we anticipate getting the preliminary planning study on February 18th, which is the deadline that we've set for the consultants to get to it. So we will get it on the 18th. We will post it. We've been working with Kendall Flint, from Flint Strategies, who is doing the Connect the Coast side outreach. She's doing outreach for Plan Princeton. She's phenomenal. And she is working with us on this project. So together we will notify everyone that the preliminary planning study is out. We will notify everyone of the date and time of the community engagement meeting for that project, the workshop, which is on March 11th, and it'll be at Cypress Meadows. But we will do a full outreach campaign during the next coming weeks, and then we will also notify people that you can provide comments and review the document at the county's Mind Mixer website. So this is a website that will allow you to review the documents and provide comments and vote on which alternative you like. And so we will be releasing the draft preliminary planning study, which is a great document. This is not only going to give you the alternative designs, but it'll also give you environmental impacts. It'll give you estimated costs, time to get how long it'll take to finish the process and get these projects constructed. It'll give you all those details. So we're looking forward to getting those. And once again, that's anticipated to be, our deadline has been February 18th. Secondly, we wanted to hold a community educational meeting for Surfers Beach on the 17th or 18th, which is next week. We are probably going to push that back a little bit because we want to make sure we give appropriate notice that people are able to attend. But that project is still going strong. We had what's called a pre-application meeting, which is something that applicants will do, and it's just to go over the actual it's to go over the application, make sure you have all the necessary studies conducted, project's moving along, and we're really on the back stretch of that. I was out at Surfers Beach today with Supervisor Horsley taking a look at it, and it's taken another hit during the last storm. We anticipate there'll be another storm coming, I think, maybe Tuesday. So we anticipate it'll probably take another hit at that point in time. One of the nice things is we were able to get Coastal Commission staff to take a look at it last Friday. We were able to get Caltrans staff to take a look at it, and it was a general consensus that something needs to be done there. It needs to be done there now. So,
Light bulb.
You got them to look at it on Friday?
During the storm.
Nice.
I actually almost broke my suit jacket. The button started to come off. We had hard hats flying across the highway. It was a great opportunity, but I don't plan on setting up site visits in the middle of storms ever again. But it was great because they got to see the waves crashing. They got to see how bad it gets and really the hit that place takes. The Coastal Commission was out here this last summer with the commissioners, and so they were able to see what it looked like then. They were able to see what it looked like after the December storm and during this storm. And so, and the commission has been great during this process, and they really are very supportive. And Caltrans has been great as well. So that project's moving forward, and we're looking forward to it. And we'll keep you guys posted as to when we're going to have that meeting. And then last thing is regarding the speed survey, and I spoke with Dave about this. If you were part of the community engagement meeting which was an MCC special meeting for the congestion management project, which were the left turn lane, raised median, and pedestrian crossings, one of the things we wanted to do was lower the speed limit out here so we can develop raised medians. And what we were told is that in order for raised medians to be constructed, the speed limit has to be has to be 45 or below, I believe it was. And so we were able to get Caltrans, with the help of Captain Mike, we were able to get Caltrans to do a speed survey. And the speed survey was determined that the current speeds should be, the recommendation is to maintain the current speeds. With that said, there is a way to still get raised medians without having to drop the speed limit. And the way of doing that is, instead of doing raised medians that have 90-degree curves that drop straight down, these are essentially raised medians that have rounded curves. So instead of coming straight down, they're going to come like that. And you can actually construct those and install those with the existing speed limits. So we will be pursuing those, and you'll see those designs in the preliminary planning study that I was telling you about earlier. So we weren't able to get the speed limit dropped. However, we had this backup that we were able to go to in order to still get raised medians, which is something that the community had asked for, which was great, and it was a nice little surprise when the consultants approached us with that, which was something that I didn't know when I spoke with the captain, so or with the community. So it was a nice surprise, and once again, February 18th is when we plan on releasing that.
Question on that.
Yes.
Can I ask? Okay. The accident rate, what is the rate? Is that accidents per mile, per year, or what? Doesn't say.
I would have to ask.
Because
Captain Mike
basically,
probably knows.
what it,
Yeah, Captain.
I would have to see the study.
Yeah.
well, what it says is that, so you've got two segments, Moss Beach, you got Montero. And in Moss Beach, there were, say, 28 accidents. And in Montero, there were like half that many. And yet the accident rate is the same. It would appear to make no sense, but the missing piece of information is what is the rate? Like I say, if it's per mile, maybe Moss Beach is a longer segment, and so that's why it is that way.
It's generally factored based on the average daily traffic flow, or ADT, so that would be the number of vehicles that would traverse that area based on a given time period. If they go 24 hours, 12 hours, however the day set.
But you would think that there'd be the same number of cars going through Moss Beach as there are going through Montero, not twice as many cars.
Sure, I couldn't answer that. It would really have to be for the Caltrans folks to ascertain how they acquire that data. I
Right,
would be merely
just-
speculating at best.
I guess looking at the report, it didn't seem to make any sense because there were twice as many accidents in Moss Beach, and yet they said the accident rate was the same. And then another thing I noted, that even though they say the speed limit shouldn't change, the actual difference in existing speed that's going on there, there's only a 2-mile-per-hour difference between the speeds traveled in Moss Beach and the speeds traveled in Montero. And, which seems like it's maybe even close to statistically insignificant. But additionally, what's interesting is that northbound traffic is overall in both towns 4 miles an hour faster than southbound traffic, which is twice the difference that we had in between the two towns, which they say should have the same speed limit. So I read it and I thought, well, maybe if you work for Caltrans, you understand why this sounds so crazy, but it doesn't seem to. I wouldn't have come up with the same conclusion they did, and I would have also had these questions in my mind about, and why. Laura said maybe the southbound people are looking at the ocean, that's why they go slower. But I mean, it's like I say, there's more than twice the differential there, which in itself isn't that large anyway. I mean, if there's only 2 miles an hour difference in what people are currently traveling, it's like, well, why wouldn't you be able to lower the speed limit? Okay, that's all I got to say.
It is a somewhat interesting study, and unfortunately, they don't point to the methodologies. So it would be interesting to know those. If you can get the methodology information, we could
Yeah,
appreciate
I'll
that.
ask. My guess might be people going northbound are just in a rush to get home, if they're anything like me. But
Well, if they're going 50 miles an hour northbound, it's not on the weekend.
Not
Anyway.
everyone's home is north.
Yeah.
But anyway, good news that you can do the rounded curve raised
Yeah.
medians.
yeah,
And
we were.
so these rounded curbs, does that make it possible then for an emergency vehicle to use that if they needed to?
I'm gonna allow Captain Mike to answer that question, I don't know.
It's certainly easier to traverse a median with a rounded curve edge. Doesn't mean that we couldn't. Generally results in, depending on the speed and angle, certainly some more challenges for the vehicle itself. So it's certainly, I believe, safer to have the rounded curves as far as if someone was to come into contact with the median. It's not going to be as significant an impact, so to speak. If they hit a curve at any appreciable speed, usually that follows an accident or some other sort of catastrophic event.
All right, and we'll be going over all of this in some depth at the March 11th meeting over at Cypress Meadows, of course. Nicholas, I have one other question on the demo streetlights. Has there been any progress on a date for that?
There's nothing.
I have a couple voice messages and emails out, but that just, for some reason, is not as moving as fast as we would like.
Okay, great. Anything else, Nicholas?
That is it.
Captain Mike, would you like to?
Good evening, members of the council, citizens here on the Midcoast. Last time I was at the meeting, a number of concerns came up with speeding in this area and having, you know, a greater presence. So we have put our radar trailer, we have 2 radar trailers. One at the present time is inoperable. The second one is being brought out by our volunteers, members of our senior volunteer group. And we move it around to different locations on the Midcoast as more of a visible presence. It records, it displays speed. It doesn't record any data. It doesn't issue a citation or anything like that. But it's really more of an educational tool to allow people to recognize how fast they're going in a particular area, and hopefully that will be of a deterrent to try to, you know, slow them down. Tomorrow, my special enforcement unit will be coming into town. Consists of 5 motorcycle officers, and their focus is to have a strong visible presence, and along with that, you know, a concerted level of enforcement. So it's not about how many citations they write, but certainly it's to get the message across, and primarily what they'll be looking for is any violations, whether it be speeding, unsafe turning movements, distracted drivers, people speaking on cell phones and the like. So that's their purpose in being out here, and again, to try to get people to recognize driving behaviors do matter when it comes to safety. And over this past storm, we were extremely busy throughout the Bay Area here within the Highway Patrol, but we did receive a concern regarding a vehicle that has been parked for some period of time, advertising a local business. It was on the east side of Highway 1 between Coronado and Capistrano. We came to find that that vehicle is parked on property that's owned by the sanitary district, and I reached out to that business owner today. She was wonderful, very receptive. She confirmed that she did in fact have permission from the sanitary district to park her vehicle there. Being that it was essentially on private property, it really precludes us from taking any sort of enforcement action. I see a gentleman here right there. Again, I'm not doubting what she told me, but what her and I discussed and what she has agreed to is to move that vehicle and recognizing that it is a concern to the local residents, and it may not be the most attractive vehicle. If it's not parked on public property, it really precludes us from having any sort of ability to take any enforcement action. Any vehicle that's parked on private property, if it's not a residence, we have to actually, or the Sheriff's Department would have to go out and cite the vehicle, wait 96, not 72 hours, but 96 hours, at which time then the vehicle could be removed. If it's obviously parked in somebody's driveway or on your lawn, you don't give it a ticket and come back days later. But for any of the sort of right-of-way properties here, that's the action that we're statutorily held to in being able to take. So if it's not an immediate public safety hazard, leaking fluids, on fire, et cetera, we can't just arbitrarily go on a property and tow it away without any sort of information from the owner of that property. So again, I don't perceive this to be a continued problem. We'll certainly monitor it, and if the citizens of the Midcoast or members of the council seem to, see this being a continual problem, please don't hesitate to reach out to me, and we'll revisit this with the property owner, or the owner of the vehicle, I should say. But again, she was very receptive. She's a longtime resident and business owner here in the community, and it's really our goal to be able to work with her in trying to resolve these issues and not just go out and take some sort of aggressive enforcement action.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, anybody else wish to speak as a government official? All right, then we'll move on to public comment. We can take public comment from anybody up to 3 minutes for any item not on the agenda. The council cannot respond to anything in public comment. We can place it on a future agenda if it's justified. I have one slip from Judy Engel. Did you wish to speak on a general matter or?
I prefer to speak on an agenda.
Okay,
I didn't
no
put it
problem,
on
no
there.
problem.
Thank
Just
you.
trying to determine. Did anybody else wish to make general public comment? Okay, Chris, you're on.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that at the Parks and Recreation, San Mateo County Parks and Recreation Commission meeting last week, Neil Mariles, who's a former member of the MCC, Coastside resident, finished his term as president of the Parks and Recreation Committee, and he was presented with a resolution thanking him for his service. And I just brought a copy of that in case anybody wants to see it. I'll put it back on the desk. Quite a number of things that Neil and us as Coastsiders can be pretty proud of. One thing that wasn't mentioned in this entire list of things is these are all things that happened, on his term, not necessarily things that he personally did, but he was on watch while these things happened. But one thing that's not on here that I wanted to point out was bathrooms that have been installed at Moss Beach Park. Anyway, so.
Champagne moment.
But thank you to Neil. I mean, the list of things here is quite extensive. Based on the comments of the other members of the commission, he did an excellent job, and I think as Coastsiders, we can definitely feel good that he's a Coastside resident, has his eye out for things on the coast.
Thank you. Lisa?
Yeah. Samtrans Citizen Advisory Committee is recruiting volunteers to fill vacancies for 3 community and 2 multimodal reps. I think multimodal rep must be a bicycle rider or something. Okay. So the Citizens Advisory Committee is composed of 15 representatives from various segments of the county and acts in an advisory capacity to the Samtrans Board, that's buses. Responsibilities include providing input on the needs of current and potential transit users. The committee meets on the last Wednesday of each month at 6:30 p.m. in San Carlos. This advisory committee would benefit from the participation of thoughtful Coastsiders, so please apply. Applications are due on March 6th and can be found at samtrans.com. Under the drop-down menu About Samtrans, you'll see Citizens Advisory Committee, and the application is there. That's all. Thanks.
Anybody else? All right, I will then close public comment. We have the consent agenda next. We only have one item on the consent agenda, which is approval of minutes of the January 28th regular meeting. Does anybody wish to remove it from the consent agenda? All right, can I hear a motion to approve?
Yes, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as noted.
Second?
Okay, motion second. Can I hear the vote, please? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, carries 5-0. All right, then we're on to our regular agenda, which is a short agenda this evening. The only item on it is an update on the new El Granada Fire Station plans from Gary Burke, the president of the board of directors of Coastside Fire Protection District. So you are on, Gary. Yeah, why don't you come sit where Nicholas is, and that way, when we get to questions, people can come to the podium.
Very comfortable.
Yes. For those who've not been here before, the microphones are for the video recording. If you want to ask questions, you have to come up to the podium, or they will not be heard on the video, and it won't quite make sense. I've also been reminded the microphones are fairly sensitive at picking up vibrations and things, so if you're standing at the podium, please don't tap the podium because it'll come in very loud and clear. All right, Gary, you're up. Thank you very much for coming.
Yes, President Olson, members of the council, good evening. Thank you for having me. My purpose in asking to spend a few minutes with you this evening is just to provide you with an update or a status report on what's going on with the Coastside Fire Protection District and our efforts to replace the existing fire station that we have here in El Granada. I'm going to cover three areas briefly, and I'm going to try to go through this as rapidly, and you stop me and ask questions, or certainly afterwards, whatever you'd like to do, I'll try to answer any questions you might have. I have provided the council with a Q&A, some of which I'm going to go over again this evening. I didn't realize that we're going to have a large group, but I'll have a couple of extra copies of this to put up at the back of the room.
I've actually got 3 extra copies here if anybody wants them.
Okay.
Is that the same Q&A that was printed out at the fire board meeting?
Yes. As far as I know it is, yeah.
And we will also put these on our website.
Great. Let me begin by just kind of giving you an overview of what the project goal of it is, what it is we're trying to accomplish with this. And that is basically we're trying to build a modern state-of-the-art fire station to replace the existing station in order to save lives, protect property, provide emergency services to coastside residents for the next 50 years. This is a 50-year project that we're looking at to go forward with this. Now, in terms of background, a couple of things that I think put this in perspective. We actually have 2 fire stations in the coast, the one in Grenada and the one that we call Point Montero, which is in Moss Beach, both of which are well over 50 years of age, probably 60 years of age at this point. The average life of a fire station at the best is 50 years. They're well over the limit. They both are too small, quite honestly, and they become very expensive to maintain and to accommodate the kind of equipment that we're using in today's fire stations. We've known for a number of years that we needed to replace them. Frankly, we just didn't have the money to do it. Like a lot of public works, we just didn't have the dollars to do it. We have chosen to focus on the El Granada station to replace it for a couple of very basic reasons. First of all, that station has more calls than the one in Point Montero at this point. It provides some critical service to the harbor district, to the airport, and it's back up now to the tunnel, which is becoming quite an interesting place to provide service to as well. The siting of a fire station is very critical, to say the least. We're committed to a standard here on the coast side and in San Mateo County that we will arrive at the destination after a call in 6.59 seconds. And we adhere to that, and we meet that standard currently at the time. But citing it obviously would affect that standard very dramatically. All engines on the coast side now have paramedics. I think a lot of citizens don't realize that the paramedics are on the engine. They're the first responders. That has not always been true in the past, but it certainly is today. 24/7 they are there. And the seconds obviously save lives and property and when you're in this type of divisions. The other point I would make in background is that our 3 stations form a network. They form backup to each other. If one moves to over the hill for some backup thing, the others move and do it. So it is a network. One station alone needs to be flexible, and I'll show you that in some of the studies we've had and the importance of that in a moment. Could we upgrade or replace the existing station? We looked at it very closely, and the bottom line is no. And I'll tell you the summary stations is, one is it's too small. It's a 4,000 square foot facility. We're looking at a minimum, not a minimum, but a station now of 10,000 square feet. It's too expensive to try to upgrade that station and move to a temporary location while we're doing that. I don't know where we'd do that, but we'd have to go through the same permitting exercise, and it's probably $300,000 to $500,000 additional to have a temporary station while you're fixing a main station. At the end of which, we'd still have, if you will, an inadequate location and size-wise. And we would also go through the same permitting on that kind of a situation as we would by replacing the station completely. And certainly, even if we were to do that, I think in everybody's opinion, we would not be meeting our goal for having a facility that would meet the needs of the community for the next 50 years. We'd still be, behind the 8 ball on that. Now, to help us find the best location was a really challenging exercise. Everybody has their opinion as to where to do it and why to do it and so forth, as you might imagine, as to what's your favorite color. We ultimately went to a consultant, a very well-known consulting firm called Seagate Associates, well-known in the fire business, and asked for their help in trying to provide us the data that we needed. I have copies of the Seagate study that was presented to the board in 2013. It is on our website, and I would urge you to take a look at it, because it is very detailed, very professional, and I think you'd find a lot of answers. But they, in summary, analyzed over 7,000 calls here in the Midcoast area over a 3-year period as to where they are, how long it took the fire engines to get there, and various other aspects of trying to determine where to site a fire station. And they also studied the impact of the need for overlap between the existing stations as well as what was going on right in the El Granada area. Their major findings were the following. Combining 2 stations, which we had thought might be an answer economically as well as performance-wise, doesn't work. You just can't do it. It destroys the standard of trying to get to your destination in a 6.59 second. That did not work. The response times could be slightly improved by moving, if you will, the Moss Beach station and the El Granada station was one of the things. The existing response times, according to our study, was actually very good. We met our response times in the standard well in excess of most fire stations, frankly, in the state from this point. And the existing El Granada station was well situated to meet the response times that were being executed. The deliverables that Seagate provided us, we have a statistical report that's 40 pages long, if you're inclined to go through all the details of it. We have the Google Earth, the response times and all of that, Excel tables, all the overlap and various other kinds of statistical things that if you really want to get into the depth of the thing. Let me switch now to the current status. Where are we today? We have purchased 2.7 acres in El Granada, fronting as Vispo Road from the Harbor District. The price was $845,000. We intend to close escrow by the 27th this month or sooner, if that thing. And there are 2 sections on that lot that were purchased, if you will. And on your map, if you would, I'd just like to identify them just to make sure that you're all looking at the same thing. There are 2 sections. One on the left-hand side, which is designated C1, which is immediately adjacent to the post office, and which has been referred to as the post office lot, and the remainder of it, and it's blocked off on your map, if you can see, the remainder of it is what is called the EG lot, El Granada Gateway lot. In the middle, that shaded area, is the riparian area. We've had that riparian area studied and evaluated, and what you see is what is included in this study, environmental studies by TRA Sciences Inc. of Menlo Park in California. If you're interested in that, that's what it is. But those are the 2 pieces of that big lot that you see. One is the smaller lot on the left, the larger lot is the El Granada lot, if you will. The C1 lot, it consists of some 11,500 square feet, and a fire station is permitted. It basically is a commercial lot. I am not qualified to answer all the questions of permitting and all of that, but basically it is a permitted area. The EG section is much larger. It's 106,000 square feet. A fire station is permitted as a public emergency service facility on that particular area. The riparian, as I say, the riparian area study, obviously you cannot use that at all, and that would not be touched in any area. The use permits, the coastal development permits, the EIR, and whatever else, it all needs to be done at this point. I'll mention some work has been done on that. Variances would be needed in both lots, both the C1 as well as the EG lot. If you look at just the C1 lot, the one that is the smaller of the 2 that's adjacent to the post office for a moment, Because of its size, a fire station of 10,000 square feet would, first of all, would require 2 stories. We could not get it on 1 story, which presents a lot of disadvantages that I'll mention very quickly. A probable training and community center, if we were to use the C1 lot, would probably have to be built across the street in our old facility. And we would have a community meeting facility / training room in that, if that were to be used as well. Parking would be an issue. We would not want to disturb the parking alongside the post office. That would be off limits. But we would probably have to get, on that lot, we would have to get a variance to move up to the edge of the riparian area just to get parking and have some kind of it. It also would have to be a back-in station that would cause some disruption on the street. It would not be a drive-through kind of station on that area. A 2-story station is unbelievably more expensive than a 1-story for a lot of reasons. I think they're pretty obvious, and it may cause more congestion, but certainly probably not more than the existing station does currently, if you will. The EG lot, the larger lot to the right-hand side, would allow a 1-station lot. It would be less visible to the public on that area. It would have a drive-through in it, a public meeting room / training room, which is critical, by the way, from a fire training perspective, as well as I assume the community might like to use it for various things, would be available in that area. It would have, there are a lot of possibilities. I'll just speculate. It might have some, at one end of it, beach parking. It could even have a dog park on one of it and still accommodate, if you will, a modern state-of-the-art fire station on that lot. It would be considerably less expensive. It would also, at least from my perspective, leave the 2 corner lots on Patola Avenue. The gateway to El Ganada would become available. If we would own those, although our board certainly hasn't taken a position, we would have no use for them if we were to use the EG lot for our station. It was interesting, just as a quick aside, the training question came up, and it so happened apparently this evening there's a emergency training facility going on at our building in Half Moon Bay. And I thought, well, gee whiz, a lot of the people that are going to that live here in Midcoast. So having some kind of facility here, I think, would help a lot of CERT training and various other things that might be helpful as well. We have hired some permitting consultants, if you will. One is Neil Martin and Associates, I forget the name of his actual firm, and the other is Kerry Burke, who is, I believe, a Midcoast resident, former planning director, if I'm not mistaken, of Half Moon Bay, and some other background, but pretty well known in that area. We've had some initial meetings with county planning department. They've asked us for some things. We've provided some information, but they have been very positive, or at least encourage us to go forward at this point. And we are going forward and looking at both sites, the C1 site and the EG site at this point in time. We are very fortunate to hire just an outstanding architectural firm. We sent out RPQs, had some great responses from 9 firms, looked at 7, interviewed 7, if you will, and ultimately chose a firm that is JKF, Jeff Katz and Associates, who had built, this is their response to their proposal. By the way, this hopefully will be approved at our meeting at the end of this month, but I'm quite confident of it. But this firm has built, I think it's 50 fire stations. They specialize in it. They've won all kinds of awards for their particular stations, so they're really a choice thing. We're very fortunate to have them. The team that Katz has associated, or assembled, I should say, is outstanding. I won't go through all the names, but a very strong team. We're very pleased and delighted to be able to have that kind of background to work with. The cost estimate for the construction of the fire station, it'll vary again because besides the lot, but certainly we're looking at a $6 million price tag. Obviously, it's all of our money, it's taxpayers' money. and we're trying to spend it just as wisely as we can and make sure that it's positioned well for the next 50 years. But it is extremely expensive. The design, of the CATS firm, the architectural firm, that in itself is $435,000. This is not an inexpensive project, to say the least. I will add that there will be no tax increases or bonding to build this. The fire district has the reserves to build it out of reserves, so there will be no asking for additional money or taxes on this. I would also state that I have had, and another member of my board has had some very informal with the president of the Granada Community Service District, with the president last year, and another member of the board, and in terms of what we mutually can do with those lots to accomplish some things that they might like to have happen, as well as accommodating the need for emergency service on the coast. It's very preliminary, very, very informal, but I'm very encouraged that a lot of things are possible that would make it very attractive to both the parties on this. The RFP for an EIR firm will go out this month as well, so we're going forward with what needs to be done to make this happen. Let me just speculate a little bit on, and also factually on what's ahead, what's going to happen with this thing. The first thing that I think we'll see is that we'll get all the players in place and all the names, the architects, the EIR, and the consultants. The Coastside Fire District Board plans to have a public meeting to solicit input from the public in March. Hopefully that's when we're going to be able to do it. This station is obviously physically located in El Granada. It is a Coastside fire station. I mean, it will affect people in Half Moon Bay, Moss Beach, the entire thing, and will be paid for by the entire Coastside, not just the people in El Granada. The planning meeting, public meeting I should say, we hope will be in March. Give me a little leeway on that, but that's what we're planning on if we get it together. The San Mateo Planning Department tells us that they will hold their meeting sometime after that. I'm guessing that would probably be in April or May, would be a guess on my part. That they have not given us a date on that. We certainly would request of you all of the Midcoast Community Council that in any way that you would like to be involved, but I would hope that you might attend these meetings, that you'd provide your input, whatever it is you'd like to have, or anything else that you can think of that would be helpful in this. We solicit that and would welcome it if you will. As I said earlier, the two alternatives on the sites will be pursued. I'll make it very clear that our preferred location for both service as well as financial is the EG portion of the law. That's, I think, meets our needs, and I think it also hopefully would meet the needs of other parties as well that are involved in this type of thing. In closing, I would just say that I have every hope and expectation that it's, in spite of the fact that I realize that land use decisions on the coast side, and I've lived here for 35 years, I'm not naive. I realize it's a very difficult thing, but I am very hopeful and I'm very confident that this could be a win-win situation for everybody involved in this, both the emergency service, open space, meeting rooms, or whatever you have. I think that can be done. People of good judgment can do it. We can have a first-class emergency center, open space, meeting rooms, and what have you. I would tell you that the Coastside Fire Protection District is committed to make that happen, and we'll do everything we can to make that happen. If at some point in the future, Mr. President, you would like another update or anything else that we could provide, we certainly would be more than happy to do that. With that, thank you, and if you have any questions, I would try to answer them.
Thank you very much. That covered a lot of ground very succinctly. Thank you very much. Council members, questions initially? Frankie, I'm sure we have a large audience.
One simple question. So to define the terms here, the C1 parcel, you're saying that includes the EG up to the riparian. and then when you refer to the,
No, the EG portion, you see that line
Yeah,
that goes
I
down?
understand
The
there.
line, yeah.
Yeah, I
so
don't
you're saying you would
understand.
build it here or
No,
here and here,
no, yeah, here, including this.
including
the
that portion of the
Portion,
EG? I see.
or here, yes,
So in other words, either to the north or south of the riparian,
correct,
and you prefer to the south?
correct.
Thank you.
Question, on the south, is this, would you intend, I don't know what you own here. Do you own the, is
The
that?
whole thing.
the entire
We
thing?
own the whole
The
thing.
whole thing.
Okay, so, you would envision using all of this on the south, or?
No, we would not. That's why I say, I'm not sure, this is very early, we don't even have any architectural drawings or anything else, this is very, but that's why I mentioned, theoretically, some beach parking could be there, you could have a dog park at the end of it. I don't know what's possible on that thing, but we would not require all of it. All right.
Would the engines access the highway at Coronado? Would that be the idea?
Well, at either end, that would be, Coronado would be one, I would assume the
They'd have a
normal.
choice.
Yeah, but they would also be able to go down whatever the.
Wishbone.
I skipped over one quick thing. Let me just say that we did not shirk on trying to look at other alternatives. When you look at the Citygate study, it presented another possible alternatives, and we suggested some. And we looked at a number of them. We looked at them on the west side of the Route 1. We looked at the Comsat, not Comsat, yeah.
The old
Comcast,
Comcast
yeah.
lot, yeah.
We looked at where the Chinese restaurant is now, and to net it out, we hit a blank wall. I mean, anything west of the Route 1 was immediately ruled out. There were some very attractive open spaces there that just are not available. We ran into Class 1 soil that are not buildable. We ran into people that would absolutely not sell. We looked at eminent domain, rejected it because of it would be years and years to get this thing done and a lot of haggle and litigation, and we did not. So it isn't as though we just went to this and went at it. We tried to do due diligence and look at all alternatives.
Any other questions from the council?
Yes, thank you, President Burke, for coming and explaining. Respectfully, I certainly would want the Coastside Fire Protection District to have whatever it needs for providing service for our community. This is a well-known, cherished lot that we're talking about by the community for a number of years. The 1978 community plan that it started making plans for this area for the community. And so I want to ask a few questions about the proposed station. You mentioned a drive-through, 10,000 square foot, single-story station with a drive-through capacity. And can I ask the purpose of the capacity, and is it related, the drive-through capacity, is it related with getting larger trucks? Because I do notice they back in currently in the existing station. I think it's under 30 seconds. They do it very well. I've watched it a number of times.
Yes, and first of all, both locations would be 10,000 square feet. That's our plan. But one would be 2 stories, the other would be single story. And internally, the advantages and so forth of drive-through, quite honestly, you'd have to get more detail and I would from the fire chief and those people, the professionals on it. It does have some advantage in terms of not blocking the streets and some other kinds of things in traffic, and certainly it has a major advantage in cost, considerably more cost, if you will, to have a two-level station.
Right. But the drive-through, what's the real motivation for the drive-through?
It's just more convenient. It's just being able to handle the vehicles easier. I'd also add, this maybe isn't your question, are the vehicles getting bigger? You bet. I mean, if you look at a fire engine today, a year and a half ago, we bought 3 of them, $750,000 each. They are longer, extremely much more complex. This past month, the board approved purchasing a technical rescue vehicle, which looks like a fire engine. It's bigger and longer than that. And again, another $700,000. So yeah, the vehicles are bigger. Inside the station, there are all kinds of decontamination units, pumps, and various other things that simply would not fit in a smaller station. If you can think back for a moment, I don't want to ramble here, but if you think back to when a station was built in the 50s and so forth, what a fire, they fought fires. That's what their business was. Today, literally 80% of our business is emergency calls, heart attacks, strokes. We don't have, thank God, an awful lot of fires, accidents. Things that the nature of the fire business has kind of changed, and they're really first responders for emergencies. Years ago, you didn't have paramedics. You never had paramedics in engines, and now that's a major consideration. Anyway, I'm rambling, I'm sorry. But I can only tell you that the advantage operationally and financially for one station is preferable. That's
Yeah, single-story station, I understand. Yeah, the reason I'm asking these questions is because, this is a cherished, our community loves this area, and, the less amount of space that your station would require to consume of this, whether it's on the north or south side of the riparian, the more space would be available for the community, whether it is parks or whether it is parking for the visitors at the safe Coronado space, which I really am very happy to hear you mention, that there is a possibility of having parking up there on the Coronado side. But frankly, I would have to say that this is a second choice. I feel that you're not willing to talk, or you've made the decision as to not to rebuild at the current location. And that would be my preference, I think, for the community. We'll see how things develop. Thank you for, like I said, it would be a second choice for me to have the station on the southern side, opening up the gateway, as you mentioned earlier, of the downtown, which is very precious. And I've talked to over 520 members of the community that are very particular about this area, and they want to see something special for the gateway of our one downtown block of El Granada. That's all I have now.
Okay. Anything else from the council before I open for public comment?
I sound not very bright, but I'm totally confused. I thought you said you wanted to build on the southernmost parcel.
yes, that's a preferred location.
Right. But Dan's comments led me to believe that you want to build on the C1. Did I misunderstand?
No, he said that his preferred, the fire district's preferred location would be the southern. That was very clear, right?
Yes.
The preferred
Yes.
location is just a matter
But
of,
they are looking at both parcels, the architects, the soils engineers, everything.
Oh,
all
okay, so
looking at both parcels.
everything's open at this point in time.
This-
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, I'm informed now.
well, then what would be the final deciding factor as to where you build?
Well, eventually, we'll go through the permitting process. We'll try to look at what the architect provides us. We'll hopefully get a lot of input from you all, the public, and all that type of thing on designs and various other things. And then ultimately, I assume we'll take a look at what's the best combination of efficiency and finances. We're not going to, as I repeat, I should say, from my perspective, when you're building something that you expect to last for 50 years, you want to make darn sure that you get good value in something that's really going to suffice for that length of time. But we're just going to have to get all the information possible that we can, get all the input we can. We're going to chat, hopefully, and have some very strong dialogues with the Granada Community Service District as what their needs are and what ours are. Our board is already authorize myself and another member of the board to officially chat with those, the member of that board to see what can be done. And as I said earlier, I'm encouraged by it. But, you know, we're looking at, you know, I don't think you're going to see I would be shocked if you see a shovel in the ground in 2 years. I mean, the environmental EIR is going to be, I'm told, a year at least to get that. So we're a long way away from something happening.
You know, there's other coastal communities that have moved their fire stations outside of the tsunami inundation zone and the flood zone. I am recalling now that is in, this whole area is in the tsunami.
Part of the
inundation.
C1 zone is, if I recall correctly, and part of the EG piece is. But in California, if you added up all the fire stations within a tsunami zone, you'd have quite a list. But, you know, what you do is you receive a warning, and you move the engine and the crews. That's what you have to do. But, you know, the alternative is to try to move it up a hill. You simply destroy your ability to respond to the citizens. It just doesn't, you know, work out in terms of your ability. But yes, you're absolutely correct. I believe you're correct. That part of it is in a tsunami zone.
It's interesting, raises an interesting question about such a large taxpayer investment, you know.
Yeah, and of course, the current station is in a tsunami zone.
Right, yeah, I believe.
It's been there for 50 years.
I believe they're outside the 100-year tsunami zone, but inside the 1,000 years.
Yeah.
Remember, 1,000-year means it could happen tomorrow. Just 1.1% that fall every year. It's a serious issue. Okay, we are on to public comment then. I have one speaker slip. We would like speaker slips from anyone who wants to speak, but I don't require them to begin with. Judy, you are up first if you want to speak.
Hi, I'm Ginny McShane, and I just want to take 30 seconds to tell you, I've been on the board for 14 years now. The mission statement for the fire department, for the fire district in any town, up and down the coast side or on the peninsula or any urban area, is to protect and save lives. Mr. Burke mentioned that about 80 to 85% of our calls are medical in nature. We have, and you hear us screaming down the highways to get to stroke patients, to get to heart attacks, to get to car accidents. And also, we're doing a lot of cliff rescues, rope rescues. And what we need is we need the access to the coastside main artery, which is Highway 1. If my beautiful friend Laura Stein had a heart attack, and I love Laura Stein, I like all you guys. I know Laura very well. If she or her husband were having a heart attack, I'd want to get to your home in 4 minutes. And I could probably accomplish that.
I want that too.
And that's the beauty of the studies that we're doing. And the mission statement simply is that we're in the business of protecting and saving lives, and mainly it's not fires anymore. These are very well built buildings. They have fire alarms, sprinkler systems. So we're just, Delgado, when I first started on the board in 2001, said to me when I first got elected, he said, you know, we used to have to run them to the emergency room to save their lives. But we can save their lives now. The paramedics can save their lives now, right on the truck. Of course, we're not completely able to. We have to get to the emergency room, to the emergency staff and doctors. But I just want you to know that with all the years I've put into this community, I stand with Mr. Burke on this. Thank you.
Judy Engel, do you want to speak?
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. It's nice to be here. It's the first time I've been at one of these meetings. I'm a resident of Half Moon Bay. I live on Main Street, 1001 Main Street. And I'm a longtime, I've been on the coast side for 40 years, and I'm a longtime friend of El Granada. I come here all the time. And I certainly appreciate your discussion tonight, your presentation, and I support you all the way, and I understand the need for better services. I do. The reason I'm here tonight, I wanted to just sort of give my opinion. I think your presentation, it seems to me to be a little too expensive and a little too big. I heard what you mentioned about this area being a precious little spot of El Granada. And in my opinion, it would be so nice to, I know all these plans have been made and it sounds like escrow is right around the corner, but it would be so nice to have the new Granada Community Service District that we've just elected, you have just elected. It would be so nice to have them have the use of that property in a multi-use building, to have meeting rooms, like you mentioned, and also a community center. And the reason that I'm here tonight is because I just want to have you hear about my experiences recently in the new community center in Half Moon Bay, the new senior community center. And it has brought the spirit of the community in Half Moon Bay like no other I've ever seen. I just participated in a couple of events recently. One, the Coastside Land Trust had their annual meeting, but just recently I'm a member of the Oddfellow Lodge, and the Oddfellows and the Rotary, they combined in a partnership to put on a spaghetti dinner to end polio now. And I can tell you, I served spaghetti to about 200 people, and we had a perfect cook behind us who knows how to make spaghetti perfectly, so it was easy to serve that spaghetti. But it was such a community event, and we saw people that we hadn't seen in a long time. It really drew the community together. And I would like to see the residents of El Granada have that opportunity to have a beautiful community center right in the heart of the community, and experience that spirit of community that I've just recently experienced in Half Moon Bay. And I appreciated what you said about if you were to purchase this property, that you would work together with the new community, Granada Community Service Districts. I really appreciated hearing that.
Thank you.
Whether that's possible or can happen, I don't know. But I was glad to hear that.
We're committed to it.
So, but I just wanted to express my feeling about a community center for the residents of El Granada. Thank you.
Thank you. Fran Pollard and Bill Kehoe, you're next.
I am Fran Pollard, El Granada, and thank you for coming and doing this presentation. Really appreciate that. And I am glad to hear that you are considering, you possibly are not going to build on the commercial part. That's the one area we've really been fighting for. I've presented a letter to your district, you know that. I've spoken before your district. So we really don't want a big fire station on the C1 lot next to the post office.
That's two of us.
Good, thank you. Now, whether you have the support of the whole community for the other end, I don't know. This is all new to us, so we'll see how that goes. When he talked about the tsunami area, it's not just tsunami, it's a flood zone. those are, I was watching a documentary the other night, and they said the oceans are getting warmer and raising higher 25% faster than they even predicted. So that 1,000-year, like you said, could come any time. If we start having terrific storms again, this is in the flood zone. Now, if we build a building, we can build it, well, I mean, most coastal areas, they build them on stilts, or they build them, so you'd have a second or third story that we could have the offices. The Granada Community Service District can have their offices. We could have a community center. As Judy said, that's what we really want here. That's what we were hoping to do with that lot. Now, a fire engine you cannot put up on a second story. It's got to be on the ground, and that's in the flood zone. It's not just that you can move when the tsunami hits. It's going to stay underwater. They figure this whole area here could be underwater. Also, I heard San Mateo County has the most percentage of underwater, this whole Bay Area. I mean, not just San Mateo County. The whole Bay Area is the worst as far as being underwater than the whole United States. It's the #1 place because we are surrounded by water, the peninsula, the bayside, the ocean, everything. And it's all gonna rise, except for Florida, maybe. We saw that, half of Florida's gonna be gone. So I don't know, I just think, you know, and a big fire engine, this is so hilly. I was thinking that the other day. Do those fire engines, can they go up El Granada Boulevard? Or do they just take the smaller ones?
They do.
God, that would be scary. It's scary to drive up there.
Have to back down though, right?
But the big giant ones?
Yeah, they go up there.
All right. Like I said, I appreciate you at least maybe possibly not going to build on the C1, but it's yet to be seen whether the EG is going to work too. Thank you.
Thank you. Bill Keogh?
Bill Keogh, West Beach. Thank you, council members. Thank you, Mr. Burke, for coming up here to the Midcoast and informing the community. Actually, I was happy to hear that you're looking closer to building down on Coronado Avenue as opposed to the post office side, because I think with all the talk about rising water, I think that's actually the high spot on that lot. So you bought yourself a few years to do that. But that's not what I wanted to talk about. I don't live in El Granada, and I certainly respect anybody from El Granada that, you know, I agree with whatever their preference is going to be. I do know that having taken the tour of all the firehouses last year sometime, the El Granada firehouse was a shock to me. It's amazing that the fire trucks can get in there and keep the rearview mirrors on. It's that tight. If you haven't seen it, you should actually walk down someday. The fireman will show you. But I'm worried about the numbers. I believed what I read was that there was about $6 million in the building fund for the 2 new firehouses. And I'm not quite sure how that's separated from the rest of the budget, but in looking at the cost of the land and the architect and the 2 additional groups that are going to help the permit processing and the city gate study, about $1.5 million has already been spent. I know looking at firehouses built in San Mateo, a 5,000 square foot one, this is 4 years ago, ran about $3.5 million. The 7,000 one ran about $5.5 million. So your estimate is $6 million. I hope you can make it, but as a member, as a resident of Morris Beach, if you spend $6 million on this firehouse, that leaves nothing for replacing the one in Morris Beach.
Can I?
Sure.
Correct,
Yes, please do.
Perhaps,
Yeah.
we actually have in reserves $9 million specifically for this structure. And the $6 million I mentioned was the estimate the architect gave us for construction. You're absolutely correct. The land use, the environmental report, the various other things that go along with this, I don't know exactly what they will be, but we think that the $3 million will cover all of that. So as I said earlier, we expect that the funds we put aside will cover all of the additional expenses for permitting and so forth. $6 million was just specifically construction. And even that will vary depending on whether it ultimately becomes a two-story or the one-story. So.
Yeah, and I think it was the Half Moon Bay Review that quoted you as saying it was $6 million. That's where that number came from. So, but again, it wasn't clear what the definition is. But the point is still the same. It looks like it's going to all be spent in El Granada. And the Moss Beach Firehouse, which also needs to be replaced because it's also 50 years plus. Where is that next $6+ million going to come from?
It's going to come from our taxpayers and our budget. And,
but would that have to be like in higher rates to
no,
get there? Or
no.
How much do you get to put
as
away?
As long as I'm there, there will not be. Let me remind you that in the last few years, I think it's 4 or 5 years, the fire district, Coastside Fire District, has reduced taxes in the Midcoast 3 separate times, and there will be no tax increases. We have we can budget and make sure that we put money in reserves to adequately fund it. Now, clearly, we're not going to build another fire station, in 2018 or something like that. It will take us a few years to put money aside to do it. It is in our strategic plan, and maybe this is overly ambitious, we'd like to be able to identify a site and perhaps buy a site for replacing the Moss Beach facility as the first step, but we're going to have to make do with it for a while.
But I thought a big chunk of the money that you put in this year was because of the excess in the budget. You had like $1.5 million extra because there was a couple of staff that weren't there the whole year, so you saved some of that estimate. But this year, there is no wiggle room in your budget. I think you're spending just about 95% of it.
Yeah,
what I'm getting at is,
Can we do it and how long?
Yeah, that's the
remains
question.
to be seen. Yes, we can do it. How long it takes us to accumulate the money. Maybe some board, when I'm long gone, will say we'd rather bond to do it. I just don't know. But it certainly will not be a tax increase or bonding or anything like that in the foreseeable future. I'm very hopeful that we could at least have the funds in reserve that will allow us to investigate possible sites at this point.
Okay, but right now there isn't any real excess to deal with the Moss Beach one, is what I'm hearing.
Not to build it.
Well, that's not coming up for another 3 years.
But again, looking at your history, and we can talk about this later, that money has to come from someplace.
Yeah, and I'm on the finance committee and we'll be there for
Maybe I'll go to the next finance meeting and somebody can explain it to me.
This is, again, cut me off if you like, but most of the surplus money that we've had in the last few years is because we entered into a long-term contract with CAL FIRE.
Yeah.
That contract saved us approximately $2 million a year, and that's where the money for this particular siting is going to be paid from. That saved, by and large, that was the bulk of it. That savings in the going forward, if you will, is going to diminish. I mean, the cost of things are going up all the time. But we still certainly are going to have a balanced budget, and we will have a surplus that we'll put towards some type of reserve that the board will decide what they're going to do. Do they want to put it in a trust fund for retirees, whatever? That's a board decision. But I fully expect that the interest in replacing the Moss Beach station is there, it needs to be done, and it will get done.
Okay, I guess if I went to a finance meeting, could we talk about this in more detail?
February 27th, or whatever it is.
That will be fine, we need about 6.
Okay. I mean, I'd like to sort of see, what the model would be over the next 5 years.
Fair enough.
Plus, we'll be selling that building and making another 1.5 million.
All right, I don't have any other speaker slips. Does anybody else from the audience wish to speak before I come back to the council? Yes, please come to the mic and state your name.
My name is Steve Terry. I'm from El Granada. And I'm sorry I came in late. I missed a lot of discussion. I hope I'm not repeating something that's already been said. But my position is I kind of like where the current location is now for the fire station. I see now that, reading through the paperwork here, I see that one reason that's not desired is because there's an additional cost of maybe a third or $500,000 for the temporary station. But I also see that there's a purchase price which is double that for the new proposed new property for the station. So it seems to me that if you were to not purchase the new station, you'd actually be saving money and rebuilding at the current location. So, now, granted, you wouldn't have that second property available still when you're all done. You wouldn't have that. But it seems like, I don't fully understand the need, why you would need additionally the second station, the older station, after you've already built a new one. Maybe there's some suggestions or indications here about community center or training area, something like that, but I would think that you could build those sorts of facilities, at least from the perspective of the fire department's needs itself, build those sorts of facilities into any new station that you might build. And from my position, I would like to see a new station. I'm not saying I don't want a new station. I'd like to see a new station built on the current location, 2-story, whatever you need, larger bays, whatever you need, and keep that other lot open for something more consistent with the C1 zoning. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll briefly summarize what Gary wants to.
Just one more time. There's certainly a lot of interest. If it were possible and economically and functionally to build on that old lot, believe me, I'd line up and lead the charge. I've talked to the professionals on this. That has 2 bays, we need 3 bays. The newer equipment, the kind of support equipment that's needed in that state-of-the-art facility, it just doesn't do it. It just doesn't do it. Now, one other thing, if I understood you correctly, I was speculating that if we had to use the C1 location, the one next to the post office, that maybe what we would do, because we need more training room, we would use the old station for a community meeting room that we could use for training our firefighters, for cert classes, various other kinds of things that other organizations could use if they would like as well. That's, hypothetical. I mean, we're kind of going down the road here, and I'm not really sure how that's going to go. But to try to use that lot and to build both the old lot, both for financial reasons and operational reasons, as much as we'd like to have it work, it just doesn't work.
If I may respond, you're saying you need more than 2 bays, but it seems to me that there's enough linear footage along Obispo that you could fit 3 or 4 bays in there. It seems to me. I didn't look at the numbers.
And again, I'm relying on the professionals to tell me what needs to go in a fire station. What is it that needs to be there to accommodate the needs of the community for the next 50 years? And it just doesn't fit.
Sure, you have the numbers though. I mean, what is the linear footage and how many feet do you need?
Honestly, gosh, you're getting into a level of detail that I frankly do not have.
Well, you specifically stated.
We have those numbers
Yeah.
that are available.
And it doesn't compute? I mean, it doesn't fit?
We cannot do it there.
Because you don't have enough linear footage to get 3 bays in there?
Yeah, our new machines are larger and taller.
And what is
And
the,
also, when you come back from a hot ride and you put those machines away, those machines are hooked up to vents. I mean, there's all kinds of mechanical stuff in our garages.
so, excuse me if I may, do you happen to know the width of a bay, standard bay size?
I have to look at the office.
Does anyone have those numbers? I mean, does the board maybe have those numbers?
No. He would probably know that.
No, do not. I don't know. All I know is the 3 bays, they're big. That's all I can say.
The reason I make such a big deal about it is because that's what your stated response, your stated reason was for, that, at least your initial stated reason why that site doesn't work. We can't fit bays there. And so I'm just wondering how the numbers play out.
I said to you that for functional reasons, the professionals say that they need more space. They need a 10,000 square foot building, up or down or one level.
Sure.
That currently is 4,000, and I think as somebody mentioned, if you've been in it today, I mean, you got to squeeze in there to get into the thing now. And just to enlarge that, try to enlarge that and include all the additional paraphernalia that is needed in a modern fire department just doesn't work. Now, if you ask me, you know, what the width of the bay is, or how tall the ceilings are, frankly, I have no idea.
What's the lot square footage?
Excuse me?
The square footage of the existing lot?
The lot, I don't know.
Lot size? Does anyone know
I
lot size?
don't
Is it
have it
100 by
right now.
100? I'm thinking 100 by 100?
It's probably not that large, Mr. Garrett, but what I think you could do, if you have the time, you can make an appointment with Paul Cole and get those numbers, or you could wait until our drawings are done.
Yeah, I imagine I'm not the only one curious about these numbers. It might be beneficial if someone could publish them, say at a GSD or fire department website, something like that. It's like kind of a fact sheet or
I'll
a
make a note of that.
FAQ page or something like that. It would be very helpful to have where some of these basic numbers could be laid out. Like what is nobody here even knows the size of the existing lot, it sounds like. I don't know.
It's probably less than 10,000 square feet, and plus we can't go any further because there's a duplex over a store.
The county website has parcel maps and scales.
But it seems like that's key to this discussion and trying to put forth an argument for why this is better than that and so forth.
When we get that information, Steve, is there a web address for you?
Let me talk with you afterwards.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a gentleman right here.
Yeah.
Oh, please.
All right, okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bob, you want to speak, or somebody else?
3 minutes.
Sure. Yeah, I know.
Not my 3 minutes.
It's running a bit long.
That's 3 minutes.
This is a little bit unusual because we have the back and forth, so I'm trying to allow a little more leeway. Okay. Does anybody else wish to speak?
Hi, my name is Robert Scott.
Okay, no, hold on a second. This gentleman here has been here for the whole meeting and he wanted to speak, so go ahead.
Excuse me.
Thank you. I just want to take a quick minute. My name's Patrick Crevelt. I'm an El Granada resident.
Pardon? I'm the secretary. Your last name?
Crevelt.
Corbelt?
Just a quick question. It's a big lot that you're going to purchase. So has there been any consideration? The C1 lot makes me very, very nervous. You've got all this other property. Has there any been any consideration of splitting that lot, selling the C1 out, developing in more of a sense of, I just want to move more towards the community input, which I'm hearing also, and that is in support of a south development rather than the EG choice. So has there been any consideration of splitting the lot?
I quickly respond is that if we were to build on the EG lot, the C1 lot, which we own, as well as the old fire station, are available. And I can't imagine we have had any use for them, and they would be available to others. But yeah, we're not trying to go into the.
Yeah, I guess I'm my concern. So thank you, council, for letting me speak. And being the community Midcoast council, I would just really, I think of aesthetics. I think of the ability to listen to how it would look, that there would be plenty of voice from the residents to give a view of how it looks. Something I've seen the last 3 fire stations that have gone in at San Mateo since I worked there. They just become dominant fixtures on the landscape. I prefer not to have a dominant public site. I prefer a more low-key type of structure. So I'm just asking you to listen to the needs, make it aesthetic, that there's a strong community input to the design process. And that's, I hope that your role is, and you're listening to us in terms of that standpoint for this. I appreciate that, Mr. Coming.
I think I can speak for a good chunk of the council that we will definitely be paying attention. I happen to live at the southern end of Sonora, so I'm very close, so I will definitely be paying attention.
Thank you.
Okay.
Oh.
Sorry.
Could I just add something to what you just said? Just
Sure.
to clarify that the permitting process for this council is advisory to the Board of Supervisors, so we don't have any actual power here. This will go through design review. There's a co-site design review committee, and then there will be public hearings I assume it will go to the Planning Commission for the development permit, so that would be times for community input.
Yes, and as President Burke has said, there will be fire protection district
Right,
public
they'll have
meetings
meetings
as well for public input. So there'll be plenty of chances, and hopefully we can work this out. And some of the reasons fire stations are dominating is a lot of them are being built as 2 stories because they don't have enough land. In this case, if it's able to go on the southern half of the parcel and be 1 story, it would also be somewhat set back into the hill, so that would help as well, I think. Okay, go ahead and please state your name.
Hi, I'm Robert Scott, and I live in El Granada on 654 the Alameda. And I'm just here to express my concern as a community member for the aesthetics and the use of that land to be to the best use for the community and for the future and all of that. And it sounds like you guys are all paying very good attention to that. I'm very pleased to hear that, and very blessed to be a member of this community. So thank you.
Thank you. All right. Anybody else wish to speak? All right. Then we'll come back to the council. Did you have something?
No.
Okay. Dan, you're up then.
Yeah, so, you know, the space is taking up a lot of the conversation. You mentioned the City Gate report. There must be in that report a whole list of new equipment that must be purchased.
No. It's
Well-
a sighting location, it does not include equipment.
Okay, so today, the vintage engine is stored in the El Granada 41 station. So, you know, when there's all that room down in Half Moon Bay, so there's probably, I guess I'm questioning, what is the real space issue at 41? If that vintage engine's not being used, and it could easily be stored in Half Moon Bay. So, you know, there must be something in the City Gate report that says you have to buy all this new equipment that's taking up all this more space. It's going to require a 10,000 square foot building.
I'm not sure that I understand, but yeah, sure, we are updating the equipment. We have a replacement schedule. As I think I mentioned, the newer equipment is larger, it is more diverse. The ladder truck that you mentioned, that what they call the Quint with the ladder on it, I think is 18 years old. We're trying to keep it running for a couple more years. We're scared to death that the ladder isn't long enough to reach some of the facilities here on the coast side. So we're updating all of that type of thing. And yes, they're going to have, some of that equipment will be located in El Granada. Some kind of a technical rescue vehicle, as well as engines and other types of equipment very probably will be located there. I certainly, as a board member, can't tell you precisely what that is and what's it going to be in 20 years, but there certainly will be larger and more need for space than there is today.
And, you know, as a property owner and a taxpayer, 80% of the calls are medical. You know, it used to be medical responses were with ambulances, and wouldn't they be cheaper to respond to a medical incident with an ambulance than a large, huge truck that takes a $6 million building to house it?
You're getting into an operational question, but let me, first of all, to have the engine moving, because if there is a call for something else while the engine is moving, they're able to dispatch and go different locations. The ambulance is a San Mateo County contract. It is not our contract. They're based and located in our locations. But the first responder is the fireman, firewoman. There is a paramedic that is on the ambulance, but most of the times the ambulance is a taxi. If you are badly injured, it takes you over to Sequoia or wherever you want. But it's not designed, the contract with the ambulance is not designed to be a first responder. That's the fire state, the fire engine.
Okay, so let's use the word ambulance as a metaphor. Why, if 80% of the calls are medical, why would we show up in a larger ladder truck?
Because while you're on that call, you may have a fire that's 3 blocks away. So you want to have an ambulance or an engine and a second vehicle. It's just a matter of trying to place the right amount of equipment to handle the needs. You look at the number of calls you have. You could really go overboard and say, look, we'd like to have a doctor on every fire engine. But, you know, obviously that would be economically and practically foolish, but you try to make some practical decisions. At some point in the future, I suspect there'll be some changes to the way fire engines are configured. We still call them firemen and women, but the bulk of the call is emergency, and a lot of people now are referring to them as first responders. That's kind of getting in the way of the fire engines. But it's an evolving area, but at this point in time and for the foreseeable future, the paramedic and the fire engine are going to be the first responder.
Okay, I appreciate your answers. One last question. I understand that this post office lot was actually not on the list of first selected choices for a new building. And I do believe that up on the Capistrano, just a little bit north of Capistrano and Highway 1, somewhere between the little agriculture area and the hotel that was a
On the west side of the freeway?
on the west side of the freeway,
Yes.
was and it appears to be, you know, maybe a great location out of the tsunami zone.
Well, let me just, the response is that we did look at that. We looked at, I think, 3 sites on the west side, and we're told that forget the west side of the highway.
But
Planning Commission, Planning Department. There were a lot, and again, I'm out of my level here trying to tell you exactly why, but one of the locations over there had, I think they call it Class 1 soil or something else that you couldn't use, and the access getting off that property you're describing was a little bit awkward as to how you get out of there. We didn't want to go on to Route 1 and so forth. But we looked at all of those. I mentioned to you that there were a lot of them we thought were attractive, as my original thought was to combine them, but that didn't work either.
thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you, President. Oh, sorry.
So the first thing is, Lisa, I think you said that this fire station is going to come up before a coast-side design review. I don't think that's true. Coast-side design review is for things with a residential component. So unless there's going to be, you know, people living there full-time, I don't think it would come before coast-side design review.
Okay.
Second, I want to follow up on Dan's comments about the 80% of calls. And I know that this is not going to change the arc of the conversation. This fire truck has already left the station, so to speak. However, in hearing this discussion, I feel that we are stuck in an outdated paradigm. That is, 80% of calls are not fire-related. So 80% of calls are medical-related. Yet we're spending more and more money for huger and huger fire trucks. We've got a contracted ambulance, which is not the first responder, but if 80% of calls are medical-related, should not the ambulance be the first responder? Should not we have some dedicated ambulance service? And the reason that I have seized upon this fact that both President Burke and Director McShane have brought up is how it relates to another issue that I am very concerned about, which is the status of Seton Coastside Hospital. Okay, 80% of these calls are medical, and we're going to build a new fire station. But we're just kind of standing in a passive position. We're going to let Seton Coastside go wherever it will. And it's been discussed at the county level that the emergency room might go away. And that, you know, that just may be the way it is. We might be left with a urgent care. As I've said before, other than Seton Coastside, there is nothing, not even an urgent care between northern Santa Cruz and Daly City. And so I feel that we are stuck in this, it reminds me of defense spending following the Cold War, we had this paradigm that we were in for 50 years or 100 years or however long, 150 years, however long we've had fire departments. But as we've heard, it's not about fire suppression as much anymore. And with the hospital in jeopardy, I would just ask Coastsiders, 15 seconds. I would just ask Coastsiders on a philosophical level to think about whether what we need is investment in more fire services, and not to denigrate fire services. I mean, certainly, you know, hats off, okay? That it's not to denigrate fire services. But if 80% of the calls are not fire-related, philosophically, do we need more fire service, more money spent on huge trucks and buildings to house them? Or do we need that money spent on ambulances, medical services, and medical professionals to handle those 80% of the calls?
Can I just quickly say that I just want to make sure that, I guess when I said 80%, I'm not sure if I said 80% are medical, but they're non-fire.
Non-fire, yes. And specifically for a lot of us who spend a lot of time on the road, a lot of them are medical emergencies related to automobiles.
Okay.
And jaws of life and other things are not usually found on ambulances.
Excuse me, President, but also because of the location of where we are, if we have a natural disaster or man-made disaster, we're going to be isolated. And some of the things that are planned for your emergency services are in that unfortunate eventuality that we cannot get the kind of backup that we need from over here, which adds to the cost and some other factors that we have to deal with.
All right. Well, it's been a very informative evening. Thank you very much,
Thank you
President
very much
Burke.
for
We
having
really appreciate the information you gave us and
Thank you very
answering the
much.
questions. We have a few more items on the agenda, but if the audience does not want to hang around for the rest, I'll take a brief recess while people leave. Move on to our next agenda item, which is council activity, correspondence received and meetings attended. Chris, I think you were the only one that submitted a written plan, so go first.
Okay. At the San Mateo County Parks and Recreation.
Shut the door here, just a minute.
Should we
We'll hold up for a second.
give them 10 minutes? Or?
No.
So at the San Mateo
Thank you,
County Parks and Recreation Commission Mini Park Subcommittee meeting, wow. I mean, I don't think that's like 15 words right there. We had a meeting on February 5th to kind of finalize the policy draft that we were working on. We thought we would have it done and able to give to the Parks and Recreation Commission for them to review later that day. This was last Thursday. However, in going through the document, we just weren't quite satisfied that we had addressed enough of the issues. We had some changes, and so the committee decided that we wanted to roll those changes into the draft document and look at it one more time in March. So the committee's going to meet again in March, review kind of the more finalized version of the draft document with the intent of passing it along to the Parks and Rec Commission for their April meeting. I also attended later that day the Parks and Recreation Commission meeting, which was very interesting and informative. A couple of things that were on there, agenda items, community health and the role of parks, trails, and open space, which was very interesting because that's one of the arguments for mini parks, is its role in community health. And the other was a summary of the county parks community engagement plan, which is what is county parks going to do to increase, they're interested in increasing awareness as well as visitation. So they had some ideas for engaging the community and increasing awareness. And just the last thing is they had a couple of benchmarks they wanted to do, which was in like 2 years they wanted, and it seemed like kind of a low benchmark, but I guess that's how far up they need to come. As terms of public awareness, in 2 years they want people to be able to identify by name 2 county parks and identify the unique features of 1 county park. So again, it seems like pretty bare bones, but I'll take it.
All right, Lisa.
I have a couple things. The RV park, the Harbor District Acting General Manager acknowledged receipt of our January 28th letter and agreed to place the issue on a future agenda, but didn't know when because their agendas are quite full. Harbor Commissioner Nicole David has reached out to the RV park lessee, who has agreed to meet with her and an MCC member over coffee for a preliminary discussion of the issues. And I asked Dave if I could go, and he said yes, so we'll do that. And the Plan Princeton Steering Committee will meet on March 3rd. That's in line with them coming here later in March. And then on the subject of planning permit application referrals, there was a flurry of emails this past week over the MCC inability to comment on 2 specific projects due to lack of receiving the referrals and other information. But the resolution is that well, a couple things. The coastal development permit for a major house addition on the Princeton shoreline, which had been scheduled for the Planning Commission today, was pulled from that agenda, and they will take it up on March 11th so that the MCC and the Coastal Commission will have time to comment. And the other thing is that county planning staff has agreed to the following updated procedures. All planners will send the MCC early referrals of all projects, residential or commercial, in digital format with the standard 2-week review time. Applicants, the project applicants will be required to submit the digital plans, which will be useful for the county staff as well as us. So they'll be posted online with CDRC agendas and through the online permit site. Staff level CDPs, which we didn't even know existed, will now be identified as such on the referrals and the design review agendas. And then the last piece is that they requested that the MCC have a permanent email address so that year to year they would not have to change that, and so I'll turn that over to Dave.
Right, so I had been thinking about this for similar reasons before they brought it up, so I don't think we need it as an agenda item or anything. I'm just going to go ahead and create those, and as we rotate through the roles, we'll pass them on. And that way we'll have a standard email address, and we'll also put those on the website under the contact information, I think. And that way, hopefully, at least until Gmail goes away, we'll have a constant email address for the council.
Will that be able to be set up so that any and all council members can receive what comes to that address?
We can set it up to forward in any way we want.
Okay,
yeah.
great.
Dave, I have something.
Sure. Go.
After our retreat, one of the things on my item list was to try to move forward with some information about the parking on Highway 1, and so I just wanted to kind of report where I stand so far. So the first thing I did was I contacted the Sheriff's Office in Moss Beach and asked them who was responsible for enforcing the no parking along the highway, and they referred me to the Sheriff's Office in Pacifica. So then the Sheriff's Office in Pacifica said that they only have jurisdiction from the east side of the highway, eastbound, and all of the highway is actually the jurisdiction of the CHP. So then they gave me the phone number of the Napa Valley Sonoma County CHP, which I was a little confused about, but at any rate I called them. Yeah, and then they said it was actually Redwood City CHP. So then I called Redwood City CHP and spoke to them, and they said they only maintain until up to the north end of Montera, and that I needed to speak to the CHP in San Francisco, which comes right back to what Supervisor Horsley said, which is he thought that it was indeed the city of San Francisco. So I got a very nice officer on the phone and explained to him what I was attempting to accomplish, and he put me through to an Officer Witt. And I chatted with him, and I said, I've taken some pictures over the course of the last 2 weekends, including one photo of the no parking anytime sign where somebody has now spray painted over the no, so that it now says parking anytime. So I sent several photos of a slew of people who had not only parked there, the sign itself, as well as 2 people walking up from the back side of the cliff right next to the sign that says no hiking or climbing anytime. And he promised that he would forward it on to their Big Cheese. I have yet to hear from him. I sent that email on the 4th of February. Yesterday I sent an email reminder, and I will follow up with a phone call.
Thank you very much. Yeah, Captain Mike said that the boundary went to the city as well, which is a little bit of an interesting boundary to have drawn, but
Yes.
So
historical.
the boundary is the north end of Montera, so basically they have from the tunnel to the, seems like they would make the boundary the tunnel.
Well, remember, the tunnel wasn't there when they drew the boundary, so they had to pick something.
Still, it was double slide, and sometimes we couldn't even get there, you know.
Yep, yep.
All right.
It'd be an interesting piece of history to know why that happened. Okay, so speaking of history, in my hat as a member of the Half Moon Bay History Association, I attended a couple of meetings in the last couple of weeks. The Half Moon Bay History Association is now actively trying to come up with a history museum in preferably the downtown Half Moon Bay area. So anybody who's interested in history, get in touch with them or get in touch with me and I'll tell you that. That'll be a long drawn out process.
Like building in a building. its
Yeah,
own facility
yeah, there's
standalone.
all kinds of locations that are being looked at, some that are owned by the city, some that are not. The other thing is following up also on our retreat, a resident of Montero, Stephen Schneider, was here talking about flooding. I did go meet with him. He found some pictures of the storm, and I've shared them with Chris Hunter, and we're pursuing that, seeing what we can do. But at least we are making some progress on that. That's all I have. Does anybody else have anything to report? All right, on to agendas. So, we are definitely meeting at Cypress Meadows, as Nicholas said, for March 11th. I'm going to skip over February for a moment. Planned Princeton, I believe, is going to have to be in another venue as well. And Nicholas, I forgot to follow through with you on that. Is Summer going to arrange that? Do you want us to arrange that?
Actually, they came here before, and then the community meeting was at a larger venue.
Is that what we want to do?
That's how we'll do it.
Okay, great. Thank you. I forgot to follow through on that. April 8th, Cypress Meadows, Connect the Coast Side. We've talked about that a little bit. And April 22nd, special meeting with County Parks. Nicholas, in light of what you said about the separate public meeting for Surfers Beach, do you still want to have the February 25th meeting here?
It's on the agenda for February 25th?
Yeah.
No, what's on the agenda for that?
Oh, the highway protection at Surfers Beach?
Yeah, let's touch base tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah, let's touch base tomorrow.
All right, the only other item I had on the future agendas was Midcoast Parklands Access and Parking Study. I've not heard back from Christine on when the final version of the report will be ready. I know that some of the council members have already given comments, and they've gotten significant comments from other people. They might be doing larger changes than they had expected.
You said, is this the parking and access one?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. We anticipate seeing a drop this week or next.
Right, and they had originally hoped the end of January, so. Yeah, so,
Yeah.
as I say, Christine has gotten back to me on that one. So, that is all the known agenda items I have. Lisa?
So once we see this study, the parking study, like you say, some of us, we've submitted sort of like corrections kind of comments.
Yeah.
And also they were here and we made comments.
Yeah.
When we see it, we may decide we don't need to comment any further. I mean, it's not a given
Certainly
that we
possible.
will want to. So, you know, first we need to see it. The other thing I have is for February 25th, comments on 115 West Point Avenue.
I was expecting that. So you want that for February 25th?
Yeah, and that, I would anticipate that would be relatively short. Hopefully, we will see the Coastal Commission letter before then. Maybe we can just support that.
Okay. All right. Does anybody have anything else for any of these meetings that they know of right now? All right. We'll keep it as is then. And can I hear a motion to adjourn?
One quick question.
Sure.
Do we know how, when, or what our plans are in what we just heard this evening about the fire district?
Pretty much all I can do is sort of repeat what President Burke said, is they hope to have their first public presentation in March.
Okay.
And I will certainly attend that unless I've got some major conflict out of town.
Will they have that on their normal board meeting night, which is our board meeting night?
I don't know. I don't know.
Well, they have had a number of special meetings. Maybe we could encourage them to have a special meeting so that we can attend.
I will certainly remind President Berg that we discussed the fact that we had conflicts. And
Particularly because
that's why he's here tonight.
Particularly because all our upcoming meetings are important.
Yeah.
I have a question. Nicholas, when you talked about Surfers Beach meeting, is that at Surfers Beach?
No. I learned my lesson last time. We're not doing any more meetings out there.
I want to go out there.
You want to, feel free. I'll send you, we can video chat. We can video chat. No, we'll try to do it somewhere nearby, maybe, we'll try to do it somewhere nearby though. But it will be, it'll be an indoor meeting.
I thought we were doing it here.
Yeah, we can go out on the balcony and look at it.
I'll take a lot of pictures, but, I've never seen a hard hat fly across the highway so fast. So, we'll try to do that one inside. I'm telling you, I went from dry to, looked like I just hopped out of the shower in, maybe 60 seconds. And I was wearing a suit I like that day too. But we'll do it nearby.
All right. I'm entertaining a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
I second.
We are adjourned. Thank you.